The wildest thing that ever happened to me was starting an agency at 22 years old with a bunch of 22-year-olds, not really understanding the fact that what that would bring is hangovers, things happening in the bathroom, overflowing toilets, just crazy stuff within your girlfriend showing up, that they met on social media, that, they stood them up for a date and they found him on there. And, even to the point where I think the Call Me Maybe was like a big song. And as a joke, one of my team members put that up on our billboard of State Farm, Matt Sutika, Call Me Maybe. And we actually had people calling us, maybe not just for insurance reasons. Not a ton of crazy stuff happened in the old insurance side, but that was some wild fun times. And, with that, I'm Matt Sutika. I'm out of Florida. I work with Obi and I'm an insurance dude.
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes.
Boom!
Yeah.
I like that in the series of crazy things of the 22-year-olds, there was crazy things happen in the bathroom, all the toilets were overflowing. So there's that wasn't part of the crazy stuff happening in the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't have to deal with State Farm compliance anymore, so I can probably tell you a little bit more than, what the real stuff. But it's I wish I had the lady driving through the window to pay her premium or some crazy, things happening. Ours was more just the wildness of having young people, because I had 20, 30 people right out of college, and just the individual day-to-day stuff from how we would leave to do this at work. And just none of them, I think, had parents or they remember they were brought up by parents and not by wolves. And so it was just our version of this Boiler Room meets Wolf of Wall Street, and that was my early State Farm days. So in theory, it was very wild, not as much a crazy individual, one scenario. It was just, this was everyday life, that it was ran like no other agency out there. And it's 100% the reason why State Farm might want to consider not giving a 22-year-old an agency again. So.
I had a friend in high school who crashed his car through the front door of a bakery in broad daylight. He wasn't drunk. It was just he said he lost control of his car. He never explained exactly what happened, but the one thing that he says, and I hope it's true, but it doesn't really matter. He said that he got out of the car after he crashed through the thing, and he walked up to the counter and said, "I'll take a dozen donuts," after he smashed through there.
It is crazy, just elaborating on, I'm thinking through this a little bit, and jogging is, I had one day I show up and I'm getting photos of social media because I bought a bunch of smart cars because I thought it was cool to have because you had to go take inspections of the homes, right? And this wasn't the only time, but the funniest one was getting these photos where one of my team members had apparently parked the Matt Sutika State Farm smart car at a gentleman's club and left it overnight because apparently he had, I guess too many beverages or whatever. And so that was posted all over my social media, our State Farm account. It wasn't a laughing matter in the moment, but, definitely. And I wish that was the only time. The amount of times I got photos because of these cars, because my team was supposed to, drive them appropriately. And again, they were 22 years old out of college. So they were always left at a bar, on the side of the road with a boot on them. Yeah. Always is something. So, don't buy a bunch of smart cars because, you want to force your team to go take pictures of homes, and they all complain that they either don't have a car or they're don't want to pay for gas. So in theory, it seemed like a good idea.
That's so funny. That's a great story right there. The strip club, of course.
Isn't it ironic that it's called a gentleman's club?
I
think the last people you see in there are gentlemen. I mean, from what you've told me, Jason.
I think that they say that hoping that it influences the people that come in there.
It's an act. So they have a different avatar than who is actually attending, right. But they're trying to create a message to market match, or they're trying to create a market for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the gentlemen aren't going to go.
I want you to act gentlemanly while you're there.
Okay. I see that.
I think it's, just the nice word for someone like me who didn't know if we needed to be PC with the audience or not to throw out what was happening.
So Matt, I want to hear the story. How did you get into insurance with State Farm and everything? And then how did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. So dad, 40-year State Farm agent. So pretty simple story.
Cool.
Uncle, State Farm agents all up in Michigan. I was recruited simply their sales leader. I don't know what they call him now, but they're, district manager, whatever you want to call him. I had moved from Michigan down to Indianapolis. He wanted to kind of blow things up. So he wanted to do a youth movement. I get a call from him because he met my dad in a convention out in Las Vegas. He's like, I want to grow this thing with 22-year-olds or people right out of school. I don't want the typical way State Farm used to do it was like, go get your nose bloody and then, get married, have kids, and then we'll give you an office because they wanted you to have experience. He thought the opposite. He wanted the gentleman's club, the Red Bulls, the bathroom overflows. He wanted that boiler room, internet lead, mafia type of atmosphere. So he was happy to, bring on people that kind of had that energy. So that's why I started, did that for about 4 or 5 years. Was pretty fortunate to be there, pretty much their top new office and then like a top 20 overall office in the country. We were just blowing it up. I won't go into my P&L because at that time I was still 22 and I didn't understand that you got to be like profitable and all that stuff. I just knew like, here's how I write this much to make this trip happen and, win this prize and, win a plaque that I had to pay for anyways, things like that. That transitioned once I realized, wow, I built a pretty good book here and I don't actually own it. I can't sell it. What do I want to do? I'm like 25, 26. So met some individuals up in Chicago that were involved with Century 21, the real estate company. Talked to them. Long story short, they wanted me to come build them an insurance company to basically convert the homeowners of the realtors right at the time of sale to a homeowner's product. And so I built from scratch an independent agency up there in Chicago. This was 2017. Through that, got into real estate, got into InsurTech because I started to dislike the length of time it took me to get a quote or the fact that I couldn't just connect the dots. So, I started to work with some of the InsurTech carriers to see if I could access them as a broker. And, in 2017, we probably all remember that a lot of these InsurTechs at that point were not very broker friendly. So I was trying to break that mold of, getting in there and representing the IA space and letting them know, hey, like you have good products that are instant, like, have me good over there. And then flash forward through that real estate journey and that tech journey led me to Obi, which is kind of a combination of the both. And I came onto Obi to help really in that IA channel. We just launched about 30 days ago in that space. We're very active. We're not completely openly where we're agency only, but we are partners and independent agent channel. So we're pretty heavy into the IA space. And at heart, that's what I still am, is an IA broker or agent, whatever you want to call yourself. And that's my journey.
Super cool.
That's great. What would you say was the earliest win? When did you really get the taste where you were like, I love this? I know that it was crazy when it was Wolf of Wall Street. Like, was that the excitement? Was it that kind of thing, or what was it?
For me, I can remember exactly. I was never great at sports, but I always had to beat my brother, even if I think I had to like lie about it or cheat or like push him down, So for me, I've always been ridiculously competitive. Going through it, I just wanted to be like my dad, make 6 figures, never miss a soccer game. That's what I thought I was starting. And I had no clue if I was going to be good, bad, or otherwise at my State Farm. But I remember getting the call about 3 months in. There's this ranking they have for new agents, right, where they rank you. And I got the call and I was going to have our first ranking out and I came out number 2. And I believe at that point was really when it clicked for me that like, I love this and I'm addicted to, the success of it and, the rankings. And State Farm does a really good job of like pumping you up, like to give them credit. They should help you more on running a business and a P&L and profitability and all these other things. But what they really do get you is excited to go out and write app count and like crush some policies. And so that was a turning point for me. And then once we debuted number 2, and then the next month we moved to number 1. From there, I've just never lost this like want to be at the top, like and be competitive and and really a space. And at that point, I knew that my journey was bigger than just make some money, never miss a soccer game, and really haven't looked back.
Super cool.
I'm glad you made it to number 1 because we know what Ricky Bobby says about number 2.
That's true.
Yeah, just a brief sprint there at number 2.
Yeah. First loser. You can't be first loser.
Yeah, I didn't want to, overachieve that much, and had to start humble.
There you go.
You guys have an internal channel as well right now with your agency,
Absolutely.
right? Describe
we have
your team in the roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So OB's give or take about 80, 90 employees overall. Over on the insurance brokerage side, we have about 20, 30 that are working in a Costco type model. right? Where we have all of our normal brokerage carrier relations that we're helping place business for our clients. Alongside of that, we've been building our Kirkland brand, which is going to be our 1 to 4 unit instant product that we are actually the MGA on. So we have the internal brokerage. We do a lot of things that a lot of other IAs are doing in the space as far as, writing business through general carriers. And then we also have ours, and really ours is built out of necessity. We found that the rental space in our industry really needed more, forget the tech for a second, like just needs more capacity, right? Like needs more options. Home auto is just littered, right? Like there's a new carrier coming on the scene every day. But in the rental space, there's just very few true 1 to 4 unit, like true commercial. So our biggest thing is just, I needed it as a broker. Like I was writing this space. So that really is what started us on the journey of getting into it. And then we've added a little tech just to make it, a nicer experience or quicker process, more so we could help some prop tech companies on the embedded side. But yeah, pound for pound, I see us really as just adding capacity to the rental space and selfishly to the internal brokerage alone.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting you bring up tech, and what's the big buzzword right now is AI. Yeah, your chat GBT and all that kind of stuff out there. How do you see, like, it's interesting launching into an environment where tech is becoming king? Do you see that there's a lot of hope for the agent moving forward with the tech, or is the tech going to be an adversary, right? Are we going to be buying from robots?
No, I mean, not for me, right? Like, so you paint me with the brush. I am like team IA channel, that happens to be in the insurtech space. I don't think so. I think it's that, it's like 83% of, or whatever the number is, of business is still wrote by a broker or an agent. At least for us in OB, we're not trying to change that stat. We just want, of that 83%, instead of them writing it with Travelers or writing it with NRIG or whoever it would be, right, to write it with OB. So we're not trying to take away I always call it Tom Sawyer opportunity of painting the fence. We're just trying to maybe give some better paint, that dries quicker and maybe costs less, or or whatever, or just give more opportunity for, really in the rental space. If your viewers are writing in that space, they know right now it's not even as much of like, what does it cost? It's like, can you get coverage in a lot of areas in the United States? So we personally think that we're just trying to provide better tech to the broker. They already have the business, so we have no reason to not want to work with instead of work against. And I think for brokers, I don't know what's going to happen with Mars and technology in general anyways, as far as like the human race. Like, we're getting more and more into our phones and less being able to have a conversation. But I think that it's going to be a long time before brokers, aren't important. Really, it's the same journey I was on as a broker is what the journey we're on as an insurtech is. This hybrid thing between broker and insurtech, the channel of brokers have the business, insurtechs have maybe a faster, more efficient process to get policies in front of clients, and combining that. So that's where we sit. I'm sure that you ask other people in tech, yeah, they're trying to AI drive everything away. I just think we're a long ways from that. Same with driving cars. There's some people who are totally fine with auto drive cars, but we're probably a long time away from a gas station shutting down, right? So that's kind of how I feel, and the same in the insurance space.
Unless you're in California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
You just bought that truck. What do you need to get you're going to have electric pretty soon.
Me?
Yeah.
No way, man.
Okay.
It's like 20 years or something, right?
Oh, is it? It's out.
That's prime example, right? 20 years. It's like, all right, and again, it's hard to predict much longer than 10 or 20 years, maybe even in this day and age, 5 years, right? So it's like, do I see the broker going out or technology taking over for them anytime soon? No. And I don't think there really needs to be. I think the fix is the fact that we need to get rid of like paper apps and 3-week processes to get a quote and, archaic stuff. I don't think the broker has to go. I think brokers are good people and they already have the clients.
How about captive agents? How do you see technology affecting captive?
I think that a lot of those captive carriers are going to have to get creative. I personally, what I think is going to happen is a lot of acquisitions. Selfishly, I hope it happens for us maybe. But I think the State Farms and the other, captive carriers, what they're going to need to do is decide, for years, they were like, hey, we're going to go into banking and mutual funds and all this stuff, right? Because they could, because they were big and dominant. I think they're going to tighten and realize that they got to concentrate on home and auto or whatever there it is. And I think State Farm acquires OB to be their, their rental arm, and they're going to bring in tech that way, right?
You hear that, State Farm? This is an offer. He's putting
It's
it
an
on
offer.
the table.
We'll sell right now at like $5 billion.
You only have 5 minutes
I'm
to
not
make
the
your
VC guy.
decision.
You have to ask Aaron and Ryan for our evaluation, but that's $5 billion. Yeah, and lunch. I think
Okay.
they got to buy lunch.
Sushi?
Sushi. Burger. I'm a simple farm kid at heart. Just
Okay.
as long as you're buying, I'm probably eating. So. But yeah, I think that is, really what I see for those captive is they're going to need to get into the tech space for their agents, or they're going to need to provide their agents more opportunities, because I think that their agents and their brokers are good people and should stay. It's just that if they're not giving them the tools, just like someone like myself, like you're going to outgrow the captive. You can't just like my dad hang your shingle anymore. So I really hope the captives, like I want them to survive, right? Like personally. So I'm hoping that a lot of these captives who have a crazy good balance sheet, able to acquire some companies, that's how they get into the tech for their agents. And again, I think it's a win-win, right? Like you want to have Obi wrote by 18,000 State Farm agents. I would love that, connection, right? Like I think that our space should think more as like, how can you be more Dropbox than like competition, right? Like how can we, work together to ultimately write more business in an efficient way, better for the client, things like that. And less like, hey, I'm going to take $10 from you so someone can take $10 from me. Our industry over the last 10 years, 15 years has been about discounts and saving money. I really think that the next is efficiencies, technology, and how do we gain clients that way, right? Like, how do we provide better services? Sure, we'll save them money here and there along the way, and it'll be better, but we don't need to do the 15 minutes to save 10% anymore, right?
Right.
Like, that's kind of on its way out.
Yeah. Well, all they've done with that whole thing is compress the margins, and then there's nothing to work with. So then they have to have a life company and mutual funds and all this stuff to pay for the company. But it's like now they're getting rid of that. So they have to increase margins, right?
Yep, absolutely. So I think you're going to see a lot more insurtech to insurtech partnerships, forming, because they're not going to want to, an auto carrier might not want to go into workers' comp. So they might say, hey, Pi, like, let's go. I think you're going to see farmers, again, I'll just always use Obi as an example. I think farmers calling Obi up and saying, hey, for our agents, let's give them an Obi contract on the rental side. I think you're going to see a lot more of that happening. Selfishly, I hope it does. And realistically, I think it's the smart way to go forward.
It's interesting, though, because at least on the captive side, I can speak to, they're very scarcity mindset about their stuff, right? Like, hey, this is my stuff. Don't touch it. And you don't get any. Pivoting from that thinking to a Elon Musk open, hey, look here's the plans of the Tesla. You can make your own, right? Like it's a very, very wide gap.
Yeah. They just, again, it used to work, right? Because it used to be so hard to switch. It used to be so hard to move. So, I owe State Farm an apology because I'll just keep picking on it here, but I actually deep down inside love them. I'm very thankful for what they've done for my family. So, make sure that's known here. But yeah, their one-on-one training is multi-line, get as many policies as you can. Like you'll never lose the business, right? Because they think of this method of like, once you're so in deep, like it's too painful to switch. Well, that's not really a thing anymore, right? Like people are going. So, that method doesn't really work as much anymore where, you can be kind of fat and sassy and say, hey, like, I don't really need to work with others or do different things like that because on my multi-line book, we got a 95% retention ratio and it's not going in there. And if I have a life policy, it's 97. Like that just doesn't exist anymore. Not because it used to be that life was hard to get or a lot of people didn't do the multi-line, everyone's doing that now. Right. And, realistically, I used to say with my State Farm all the time, I would have maybe still be a State Farm agent if they would have just given me like maybe let's call it 3 or 4 strategic contracts, right? So I have my main State Farm, and maybe there's a rule where I got to run it through them first or something. But give me like a substandard auto, maybe give me a next insurance, I don't know, or something. Give me a couple things that State Farm didn't really do well. Like I was a rental and apartment guy. State Farm at the time wouldn't write those to save their life. If the premium should be around 100, they were at $1 million, right? Like give me a couple contracts there, maybe one wholesaler contract with an Amwins or something. And it's good, right? 90% of my business still goes to State Farm. I do 10%. And that's my book outside my book that I eventually bring back into State Farm as, things change, et cetera. So personally, that's where I would like to see a lot of them go. And I think a lot of them will need to, or they're going to have to downside their agency force. It's going to go from, 18,000 down to 4,000 because you're just probably not going to be able to compete the same way you did. Not with the independent agents. That's the other thing too, is the captive agents used to have better technology, better training. They used to be ahead. It used to be so hard to be an independent agent, right? And I'm not saying it's not hard to be an independent agent, but the independent channel has caught up, if not surpassed, with their ability to do things independently. They actually, I think, maybe have even, like I said, surpassed the captive because they've been constantly battling to get better, constantly bringing in things to help their agency. And the captive has been like that. So
Stagnated.
that's my thought process there.
Yeah. And the tech, I mean, speaking from experience with the tech, it's declined, like as insurtechs have developed amazing products, and amazing services, amazing methods to deliver and beat the competition. Many carriers have not kept up with that, right? Or many of the captive carriers.
Yep.
I won't name any names, and certainly not the one I'm with. The majority just have it, right? Like, and they continue to build on top of what they already have instead of creating something new. So it just is interesting what's going to happen with those.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like selfishly, I don't think there's any insurance company that I don't like, right? Like, I guess I should throw that out there. Like, I love the insurance space and other brokers and other carriers. I just can't help but think that, these big captives, they have great policies, right? And it's just like, if they could bring in some technology or bring in just a couple things, they could still dominate for another 100 years, right? Like, it'd still be very big players, but you do eventually have to go from square wheels to round wheels to driverless cars. Like, you do have to adapt. It's not negative. It's just, we no longer do flip phones even. We're touch, like, you do have to move, but gosh, they have such a great opportunity if they can continue to move or partner or bring technology in, because they really do have good, strong business fundamentals, probably cash rich, the whole nine. They have a good agency force. They probably have some of the better brokers who have been around for a long time, or agents. Like, they have a lot going for them. So like, they really do still have the forefront. Like, I always hear on Shark Tank, anytime there's a lot of times there's a good idea, you'll hear like Mr. Wonderful or someone be like, well, why doesn't the big guy just replicate that and do that? And that's kind of still like I always think anytime I see this new thing in the insurtech space, I'm always like, all right, a captive or someone could probably do this if they wanted to. They already have the distribution. They already have the funds and the clients, right? Like, they just got to have the want and maybe just get out of that mentality of like how it's always been.
What do you think, all of that going on, where's the competitive advantage for the agents that you see like moving forward?
Yeah, so I think the competitive is partnerships, right? I think, and how you're accessing the agents, right? So growing up, how you access clients was hanging your shingle. Maybe you're the person in town, maybe you're on the local chamber of commerce, and people came to you, right? Because of how things went. Then it was the age of like, I'm going to somewhat get in front of people with technology through social and internet leads and everything like that, event marketing, right? And now I think we need to be where people are already at, right? So instead of thinking about how do I access the homeowner, it's like, how do I access a partnership where the homeowner or the person who owns an auto policy is already like working with, right? Like, how do I get in as an agent with, I don't know, the lenders and realtors, that's, one-on-one, everyone's like, get with them. But how do I get into Chase? How do I get into everybody's logging into their local soccer club, website? How do I advertise within there? The easiest example is like, everyone goes into Amazon. Like, how do I get into Amazon, and be on the right-hand side with a homeowner's quote, right? So I think the next step in the evolution is really working with partners. And even if it's not through technology, even if it's still, grab the phone or meet in person, but really finding those partners who are already found your client. And the reason why I like partnerships more than anything is insurance is very simple. How people come to you is how they leave you, right? If they came through an internet lead, they'll leave through an internet lead. Came through Google, they probably leave through. If you start to double layer those relationships, right, where they come through you, like, why do we like realtors and lenders? It's because you have that double layer. They come to the realtor who they also like, and then they come to you, or they come to the lender and they come to you. So meaning that they have to leave that realtor or lender's relationship to also leave you, right? So really, that's what I would concentrate on there. And the way to help these partnerships out is a lot of them are dying for time too, right? And efficiencies. And so you used to call up a lending institution and say, hey, I can provide you quotes really fast, or I'll come down there and provide you quotes or whatever. What if you could just for your, now just provide the processor in a whole lending institution, your landing page, where they could just quote homeowners policies in 30 seconds and add them on for their closing. And you're the one that sets that up and helps out with that and answers any questions, right? You can actually help them build their business compared to like offering them like, $10 and a couple donuts, once a month, for like, thank you for your business. You can actually find a way to use insurance to help grow their business. And I think that's what people should concentrate on, or what I would concentrate on in a brokerage land, is like, how do I help the people that I want to introduce me grow their business? And then I'll get all the leads and opportunities that I need.